Hello and welcome to a VO's Journey podcast. My name is Anthony Pica. This show is all about helping the new and upcoming voiceover artists grow their business and sidestep all of the crazy things that I seem to step on. I have got an exciting show for you tonight. I'm just bubbling over here. I had the privilege to interview Redd Horrocks, who is a top-rated seller on Fiverr, been there since 2013. Absolutely incredible woman, so knowledgeable, so just fun to talk to, and we go in for quite a while. I apologize upfront for the length of this, but I think you're really going to enjoy it, and make sure you listen to the end because she gives some information that I've never even heard before about her workflow and the things that blew my mind. So thank you, Redd, so much for your time. And if you don't know a little bit just more about her before we start, she goes into it, so I won't go too much. But, you know, she has played an integral role in, I believe, helping Fiverr become the company they are. She was at the stock exchange with Fiverr and rang in at the New York Stock Exchange when they went public. So really, really amazing. So I won't take up any more time. Let's do it.
This is VO's Journey. With your host, the incomparable Anthony Pica.
All right, so I am here with Redd Horrocks. I hope that's how you say it.
It is.
But that's wonderful. So I am here with Redd, and it is an honor. Thank you so much for being on a VO's Journey podcast. Thank you.
You're very welcome. It's lovely to be here.
Well, I know that there are so many people that listen to my podcast that are in total awe of your accomplishments on Fiverr, and they've been so excited in the community that I run and stuff on Facebook as well for this podcast. So we're so excited. So I thought that I would kick this whole thing off by asking you if you could tell us a little bit about your background and how you got started in voiceover.
Yeah, my start is a lot like many other voiceover people's starts, where they just happen upon it randomly and then it kind of sticks. Way back so many years ago, please don't ask me how many, when I was in college, I had a friend who was a video game major, and he was putting together his main character for his senior thesis video game project, and asked me if I would mind voicing the main character, and I'd never done anything like that before. And I said, sure, that I can I have no idea what I'm doing, but why not? So we went in and we did the character, and it was so much fun. I had the best time. I got to do a lot of blood-curdling death screams and interesting monologue narration. But it was really fun, and I really enjoyed it. So I kept it kind of in the back of my mind as something that I would do for fun once in a while. And then about, probably 7 or 8 years ago, I was looking for ways to just make some extra cash. And I started doing a little bit of voice recording for an audiobook company, which I didn't really much care for, but it was different. It was good. And then one of my friends actually pointed me towards Fiverr when I was just looking for as a buyer. I needed a document formatted, I think, and he was like, "Oh, check out this site. It's pretty good. They have like something for everyone." So I went on there and got the document formatted, and then noticed there was a voiceover section. And had a peek around and thought, well, maybe I could post a gig. And my first month, I got 9 sales. It was very exciting.
Yeah.
And then it just kind of grew from there. And it got to a point where it was sustainable. And I was able to stop working corporate and go full time. And the rest is kind of history.
Wow. I had to ask you because I have read some of the articles. I know that many people know, but if they don't know, I know you were in Forbes and Business Insider and all kinds of different magazines and stuff. But I'm interested because I've only been in Fiverr for a couple of years, but when you joined, which I think was in 2013, or that's what it said in some of the stuff I read, what was Fiverr like then when it comes to like sales? Because I mean, were you able to charge? Was it just $5 at the time?
Yes, this was before you could change your base rate, and this was even before you had options of adding many extras. So you could put in a few extras, but it was definitely the system was a lot more simple. There weren't nearly as many features. The level thing existed, but it didn't come with... There's perks that come with levels now. Not all of them were there before. Some of the perks that we get as like a top-rated seller are still fairly new. And we... there weren't that many of us. You kind of knew the core group of people. So yeah, it was quieter. It was busy. Like, work was very busy, but you had to pump out a lot more volume to make the kind of money that you can make now, purely because you couldn't have your base gig starting at more than $5, and you couldn't add extras and things like that. So it was streamlined in some ways, but it was also more complicated in other ways because you had to work around the system to get the orders built that your clients were actually looking for. So all the new features have definitely been good.
I bet. Yeah. I mean, I actually, I'm actually excited to ask you about what your thoughts are about all of the extras and the things that are available now, and like what you utilize. I know we're gonna go into all kinds of things, but I'm interested in, and if you can kind of just maybe run us through, kind of what your thought process is about Fiverr from top to bottom. If you were talking to someone new who is coming onto the platform.
That's actually a pretty big question.
So it is a big question. So maybe you could start with I guess so. Let's talk about this pricing. So let's just first start there. Okay, so kind of give us a rundown about your theory of everything when it comes to pricing on Fiverr.
Well, the first thing is that I will say, and I when I do talk to people who are interested in joining, I do say this, your pricing is your choice.
Right.
It's very tricky because, well, now we're in a better situation where people can have a range of price. You can start your base price at more than $5 and still expect to get orders. A lot of it depends on whether or not you want to be an accessible high volume seller, or whether or not you want to provide a different kind of service where you are maybe charging a lot more, but then you're giving more in other ways. So for me, what I've always tried to do with my pricing is I want to be as accessible as possible to my clients, because in my opinion, and this is just purely my opinion, one of the reasons I don't like working with agencies is because I do think the voiceover work can sometimes be incredibly overpriced. Right. It's so different now. The technology that we have access to as independent producers, we don't have to have a $50,000 studio in order to produce great work. So I like to take that and pass that on to the consumer. So I want people who are doing, I get people all the time who are doing something super small for themselves, like they're doing a school project, and they don't have $300 to spend on a 35-second voiceover. Right. So for me, I'd rather be able to do more small projects for more people, and then I use extras and I use additional options where I can put that into building up my rate for people who need that. So someone who just needs something very, very basic, they're not going to add my extra fast delivery. They're not going to need to separate files out. They're not going to need to add music. They're just bare bones people. Where I make my volume is from, where I make more of my money is from when people need things very quickly, and I'm very accessible for that. Or when they need something, a very large project that's done over the course of several months. Like, these are those kind of clients, and the repeat clients that I have, those are my bread and butter. So I try to make myself accessible to them. I would much rather have an amazing client who comes to me literally every week and just keep going with them year in, year out, which I have several. My biggest order count right now is 1,700 orders from the same client. So, wow. And that's valuable for me because we have a working relationship, and I know what he wants and he knows what he's going to get, and there's never any back and forth. It's just, this is it. So I'd rather that than have one client where I'm doing 35 seconds and getting paid $300 for, because that person's not going to need me again.
Right.
So my approach is more like, I like to build up client relationships with people who are going to want to come back, who I can keep working with, who we have a good working relationship, and we can provide what each other needs. And that, for me, has been my drive for success, and that, for me, has worked. Now, this doesn't work for everyone.
Right.
But for me, for sure, with how accessible I am, I'm in the studio every single day.
Right.
I'm often able to get something out to someone within an hour if they're in a real time crunch. So it's just mostly about what you also want to be doing for your availability and what makes sense for your life. If you're the kind of person that you would much rather have, say, a 5-day turnaround and you'd rather charge a higher fee, build up your queue and then only record 1 day a week because maybe you do have another job that you're going to, that makes
Right.
perfect sense. So it's kind of like where it fits into your life and figuring out how to balance what you want to achieve with what you can give. And I don't know if that makes any sense, but that's kind of how I view it.
No, absolutely. It makes a lot of sense. I mean, that's basically the way I started. I mean, that's what I did. I think my question to you is this, and I know it's different for us as top-rated sellers, but there's a lot of people, and we still get them occasionally, but there's a lot of people who are confused about the level or the amount of I don't know, ability to take something from a customer who feels like they're taking advantage of them.
Oh, yeah.
And so my question was because I know a lot of people do ask, how do I know, you know what I mean, how much I should take, or what should I be doing or allowing these customers to ask me? So I'm just interested in your take because, you've been around for a while on Fiverr.
And trust me, I've seen it all. Yeah, this is actually a conversation I have. One of the other Fiverr ambassadors and top-rated sellers is a gentleman named Ryan Heenan. He's on his custom drum loops, and he does mostly these days he does whiteboard videos.
Okay.
And we have a lot of conversations on Skype over balancing what we're willing to do for work with our mental health.
Right.
It's very, very tricky. A lot of it is knowing that when you're on a platform like Fiverr, one of the things that you often have to take a step back and remember is that you are working with people from different places and different cultures, and things
Right.
that they say to them aren't going to be what they mean and how you take it. So I've found having a really, really defined set of rules. I have a very strict revision policy, and I do not wiggle on it. I don't care if you're a client that I've had who's done 1,700 orders with me, or if you've done 3. This is my revision policy. I don't wiggle on it. I get bad reviews sometimes. The only negative reviews I have ever had are because people do not like the fact that I charge for revisions. Because if you've given me a script and I've recorded it, and then you want a different script, I can't magic that. That has to actually be a new studio session and be redone. So
I absolutely agree.
Yeah. So for me, what I find beneficial is I really sit down and I evaluate what my boundaries are, and I decide what I am willing to do. And I will wiggle that in the favor of clients sometimes, every so often, depending on the situation. I will give a little more to a client.
Right.
But at the end of the day, I know that if I stick to my revision policies, which I do believe are very, very fair, and I treat everyone the same, it's okay. And then if someone's coming to me with this having an issue, I know it's not me, it's them.
Right.
And I also have, I call it my spider sense. Sometimes you just know with a client, you just know something's going to go south. And
Yeah.
I've often found that in many instances, it's better to just extricate yourself from the situation than to spend time stressing or worrying about it, because it does emotionally impact you when you're having a client that's tricky, especially when you're getting, when you're messaging someone back and forth for what feels like and sometimes is hours, and you're still just not able to get on the same page. Every so often you have to be like, you know what, we're just not a good fit, and there's nothing wrong with that.
Yeah.
Someone else can help you. There's plenty of other people, but you also have to judge what impact you let people have on your life. And it's real. I do, and I'm terrible at this. I do it all the time, where I will not terminate a conversation just because I'm like, I want to be right.
Right.
But sometimes it's just not worth it.
Right.
But then you do have the clients who you give them a little bit extra, you give them a little bit more because you get a really good feeling about them. And that can pay off in dividends. So we're all humans. That's the other thing that a lot of people don't realize on this platform is the buyers and the sellers, at the end of the day, we're all humans. A lot of the times buyers have a deadline or a client that you don't know about, and their stress and angst over an order, it's not because you're not providing, it's because they're under pressure and you just don't know. So
Absolutely. You know, and I love that because I think so many people do feel that way, and they do forget that and a lot of the people we work with on Fiverr are brand new too to using voiceovers.
Yeah.
And they don't know what a person in a studio setting or an industry, they don't even know the vocabulary.
yeah.
So and we get frustrated when they have those types of questions or don't want to do this or don't understand. So I totally understand. And I do think you're right about Fiverr being such a unique place that I'm on all kinds of different platforms, but there's no place exactly like Fiverr where it really feels like the business availability or the amount of work that you can get on Fiverr. I mean, it's unbelievable. So you're going to meet all sorts of different people.
You are.
I mean,
and different people have different budgets too. That's the other
Right.
thing that's interesting is I will have clients who will come to me. I have clients that order through my regular gigs all the time, but I do occasionally, and they are my favorite thing in the world, is I will have clients who will message me and they will give me their budget, and it is not my published rates, it's much higher because
Right.
they know that this is how much it would cost them somewhere else and they'd rather work with me, but they have that budget, so they're still willing to pay it.
right.
And that's always nice. It makes my heart happy. I feel so valued. But I love all my clients the same, but those ones I'm always like, aw, you guys do think I'm okay at my job. That's kind of nice.
Absolutely. And so I have some other questions. So one would be, do you do live direction?
I used to.
Okay.
I had a gig for it, and I actually ended up having to turn it off when I was traveling, and I just haven't turned it on yet, and I've just not felt the impetus to. Again, it's one of those things where you open yourself up to that, and sometimes it's amazing. Someone will book you for an hour. It'll take 12 minutes, which is what you knew it was going to take in the first place. And then you've got that client who's happy. You get to work with them. It's fun. But then you'll have the occasional client who doesn't show up when they're supposed to and, overruns time and isn't prepared and all this kind of stuff. So I found it to be kind of 50-50 in that regard. So even when I was having it available, it was very, very rare that anyone would use it. So I just kind of stopped doing it. I do have a couple of studios that I work with off of Fiverr that I will occasionally go in and do a studio recording, which is always fun. But I more consider that like something for my own enjoyment rather than part of my job, if that makes sense.
Yeah, no, absolutely. So you do actually, and I've noticed this, I don't personally do it, but I've thought about it, but I notice that there are some other sellers who do create an entirely different gig for maybe 24-hour turnaround or, like you said, on live direction, whereas like I actually just have it all in the extra section. Do you see a difference with doing one or the other?
Well, yeah. If you have a main gig that has a lot of reviews and a lot of traction, you're going to get more people looking at that. So if you've got that as an extra, it's going to be more commonly ordered. I chose to separate it out a while ago because there was a period of time when Fiverr was really encouraging people to have as many gigs as possible.
Right.
And I had added in a couple of extra ones, and now I think they do still kind of encourage that. But I've just found for me that having the main gig with all of the options, it's a higher profile gig. It's people will look at it more.
Sure.
So I think it kind of depends. The thing that's different now with it is obviously my live direction gig starts at much higher than my main gig.
Right.
So I'm going to, when that's on, I'm going to show up in a different category. When people put in a high budget, I'm going to come up there for that. Whereas my main gig wouldn't show up if they put in the max, the little $3 sign budget.
Absolutely.
So,
gotcha.
But I honestly, wouldn't get that many orders on it, so I didn't really.
Right,
I think if I added it to my main gig, I would get a lot of requests for it.
Right, because I do actually get, I do actually live sessions. I do like a couple of, 1 or 2 a week or so. So it's not a lot, but it's a decent amount from Fiverr. So the question I want to go into now is I kind of want to get into, yes, we have been doing nitty gritty stuff, but I want to get into nitty gritty for a newbie, someone just getting on the platform who started to fill out the stuff. How do we get business? How do you get the ball rolling?
You have to be incredibly competitive and well prepared. That's the best pieces of advice. Look at everyone else's. Do not copy a gig because that'll get you banned. But look at other people's gigs. Look at what the heavy hitters are doing and offering. Make sure when you're putting up your gig video. This is a thing that I've noticed that a lot of people aren't doing these days, and I think it really does make a difference. So my gig video doesn't start with my demo. It starts with about 20 seconds of me just talking in my normal voice, which is actually English or American, depending on who I'm speaking with. So I think on my regular gig video it's English because I was talking just to myself.
Right.
It's me introducing myself and just saying, hi, I can do this. I'm a voiceover artist. This is what I can offer you. I'd love to work for you. And then I go into 40 seconds of demos. And my demos are all about 5 seconds long. So I have 8 different ones in there so people can really hear what my range is.
Uh-huh.
But having that 20 seconds at the beginning to introduce myself, where I am a human being and this is how I normally talk, I get more people asking me specifically for, quote unquote, the voice at the beginning of my demo than any other thing because it's my natural, normal speaking voice. And right now, 70% of clients want just your natural, normal speaking voice. They don't want huge, pushy, forced ads. They want a natural sound. They just want a normal person talking. So I would say when you're putting together your gig video, introduce yourself. Make sure they know you're a human. Give yourself your samples, but be you. Then make sure that your gig description is detailed. Make sure you're including anything that you would consider a keyword if someone was searching. So obviously, voiceover, the accent that you can do. Make sure you're including your available genders. Age ranges, you can put that in there too. And make sure you do be very specific if there's anything you can't do. I don't work on adult content, so that's not an option for me. And then any extras that you can do, I also have, even though they're outlined below, I have noted in my gig description what the things that incur an extra charge come from, because sometimes people won't make it down to the extras and they'll just think that everything's included. So it's good to be very clear. And then when you get an order, over-deliver, especially in the beginning. The best thing you can do is get stellar reviews. Make sure you're communicating with the client. If the client needs something, you don't have to do free work, but make sure the client's happy. Deliver early. That is key. That always makes clients happy. When they get an order a day before they think they're going to get an order, it's wonderful. Right. But yeah, just be communicative, be respectful, provide high quality work, be clear. Those are the big key things, I think.
So what? Oh, absolutely. It's interesting that you said that about the gig video, because I actually do something different. However, I do it differently because I honestly feel I actually get more business because my first spot gets me the most business. So I do agree with you about definitely the first couple of seconds will get you your business on your demo or your talking. But at the same time, I know for me, like I feel like the way my demo is, if someone heard me talking, like my demo better.
Well, you don't know until you ask. I mean, it might be an interesting thing to A and B test for a bit.
I did. I tested out when I first started.
Ah, okay.
But absolutely. I mean, listen, I think it's everybody is. I love what you just said about testing. I love that because I think that is so important on the platform, to testing new things and trying out different stuff.
Yeah, and the thing is, if you do decide to go and test things, the important thing to remember, and I counsel people on this all the time, is to make sure you give yourself time for the test to work. So if you change something and then all of a sudden you don't get an order for 2 days, that doesn't mean that you're not going to get orders and that you broke it. It means that maybe that's just a slow day on the site. You never know. You have to test things for a good week or 2 weeks to see how they'll impact. I also do, when I'm looking at making any major changes to my gig, especially to my pricing, which I make I'll change my pricing model no more than once a year, sometimes only every other year. And whenever I'm about to make a change, I will go to whoever my current top 10 clients are and I will ask them for what they think and how it would impact their business if I changed my rates in this manner. And generally, it's overwhelmingly positive. I mean, usually my clients, if I'm saying that I'm going to increase my base rate, a lot of my clients are like, why haven't you done that already?
Right.
But then things like I was looking at changing the way that I priced out my extra fast delivery, and I messaged a bunch of my regular clients who usually order that, and I did have 2 of them come back to me and say that it would be beyond their budget capacity in order to do that, and that would, change how often they'd be able to order from me. So I decided to kind of table that one for a minute, and maybe I'm still thinking about doing it, but I might wait another few months and then go back to them again and see how we're doing, or see if my more high volume clients have changed, because you never know who's going to come along. So
that's so valuable. I love that.
Yeah, so there's nothing wrong with asking your clients. If you think you might want to change something, get their input. They love being asked.
Sure.
And that's the other thing too, because clients then know that you're valuing your relationship with them enough to ask them for input on what changes you might make affect them. It's a wonderful thing for a business relationship when you actually can have a dialogue about it. And I get insights all the time when I ask those questions of clients that are really valuable, like things I don't necessarily think of.
Right.
So, yeah. Sorry, I went on a tangent there.
No, that's okay. That's okay. No, absolutely. And from the standpoint of driving traffic to your gig, because I know that when I started, even a couple years ago, there was a lot less people on the site. And, the site's growing, and I think it's, and I, again, like what you said when you first started, I'm sure it's grown just crazy. Mm-hmm. So there are a lot of people who are putting up their stuff and trying, but they're just not seeing the amount of impressions or anything to get them any work. I know there's a buy request section and things, but do you have any tips on driving traffic to your gig that aren't, just what we were just talking about?
I mean, this is a tricky one because the Fiverr search algorithm is a mythical unicorn being that doesn't know where it lives. So I have no real... I don't have any tips that would be this will make this work, because I don't think there is such a thing. What you can do is you can make sure you have keywords in your gig description and in your title. You could definitely, using buyer requests is good because you want to build up reviews. Fiverr's really good now with their algorithm. There's a lot more of it. This actually used to make a lot of us. I don't want to call us heavy hitters, because that's not right. But a lot of the top rated sellers who've been high volume sellers and have been on the site for a while, when the first shift came where Fiverr started promoting people ranking in search new sellers above us, we all got kind of sucks. But I get it, and I totally get it. And now it's a really good blend. They've figured out how to make it a lot more diverse. So in voiceover at the top of best selling, there's always people that are new. I mean, right. I saw a girl on the top row the other day who had 12 orders before. So you also have to keep at it and know that the system is built to help new people. That's something that Fiverr it means a lot to the company, is to have new people coming in, new sellers. So to a certain degree, you have to have a little faith and patience as well. But yeah, buyer requests for sure. If you want to share things on social media, you can share things on social media. But there's no magic answer, really, unfortunately. Some of it is just time.
Time. I was going to say that. I was going to say time because I know it does take that time to build up the customers. Mm-hmm. I think the repeat clients are so important.
Yeah, I have a saying that says you never know when your next client is going to be your best client. So whenever you have a new client, you treat them, especially if you're new, and you have the time to dedicate it. Build that relationship, keep them coming back, make sure they're happy, answer their questions. That's another thing that I will say, and this is something that I still am not good at. Capturing sales from messages is really important. If you've got someone who's taken the time to send you a message asking for something, do your best to communicate quickly with them to make sure that you can capture that sale. I am terrible about it. I get a lot of inquiries where basically it's a little frustrating for me as a high volume seller when I get messages that are just like, I have this many words, send me a custom offer. And I'm like, if you go on my gig page, you can do this magical thing where you can enter this information and bam, an order. So I do tend to I tend to steer those clients back to my gig page because for me, I want to teach them that they can just place an order. But for someone new who has more need for new business, shall we say, than I mean, I'm not saying I don't need new business. I always do. But for someone who has the time, who can work with the clients that do need a little bit more hand-holding to get through the order process, I take the time. I mean, if you've got the time, use the time.
Absolutely. A funny story, when I first started on Fiverr, I'll never forget this, and it actually taught me something that I'm struggling with now, trying to break just because of the amount of work I'm doing. But I'll never forget, I got a message from a customer who was asking me about services and they wanted to work with me, and I wasn't able to get back to them for about 15-20 minutes. And then I got back to them in about 20 minutes, and then when I messaged them, they said, sorry, someone else beat you to it. And I'll never forget, I'm like, what? Because I was so excited because I was just starting. I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm going to get a job. And then at that moment, from that point on, I had this insane just tick that whenever that bell rings on my phone, I've got to answer it immediately. But now as I go through it, it's interesting as you go through this process on Fiverr. I think the customers and the people you start dealing with, it's not as harsh, I think it was as I was beginning when I was first starting out, where these people are messaging a couple of people and it's whoever answers first. But I still do something where I actually ask on my requirements section, why did you choose to work with me? And they actually put down, they're really honest. And sometimes they'll put down because your green light was on or like you were online or you were quick to answer. So it still does matter, which goes back to what you said about, over delivering and, trying to do your best for the customer. So.
Yeah. And I found there's two different types of clients. There's clients that need something and there's clients that need something specifically from you. And I'm very, very lucky in that I have a stable of clients now. So when I'm away for a week, I know that when I get back, I will have had clients who have waited for me because they need something specifically from me. But I also know there's probably about 30 other clients that I could have captured that I didn't because I was out of the office. So there's new people to the site every day. Now that we can see when someone's new to the site, it's insane. I get people who have never ordered before constantly. So I know that other people are getting those too. So that's the other thing too, is if you've got a client and you're seeing that they are new to the site, they're new to Fiverr, it's their first order, then absolutely try and build that relationship with them, because if they've come to you first and they've not gone anywhere else, they're yours. It's up to you to lose them. So you keep them as best you can.
Oh yeah, I send a thank you to them for being their first choice on Fiverr, and
so much better than me.
Well, it's one of those things where the bad thing is I do forget sometimes, but sometimes I do it just because it is nice. And you're right. I mean, they'll have no other reason to work with anybody else.
Yeah, if they're getting exactly what they need from you, they're not going to go anywhere else. So yeah, client relationships, it's key.
So it's not necessarily Fiverr related, but you mentioned something that you do occasional studio work. My question to you is, what other places or how many other places do you generate, some sort of income from that's not Fiverr, like online sites or something?
I'm on, let me see. I would say that I am now active-ish on 2 to 3 different marketplaces other than Fiverr. Okay. And then I have a website, and I do have external clients that I work with that have found me through my website that I've kept. There was one other site that I was on, 2 other sites that I was on up until about a year ago. One of them, I did not particularly care for their demand on a provider. They were, in my opinion, a touch unreasonable, and I found myself dreading every time I got an order, because their whole system was really not, it was not skewed towards being friendly for the artist. It was
I'm
really
I'm
messed up.
laughing because I'm not gonna. I know you. I've just by talking to you, I know you're not the person who would probably say who that was, but I feel like I know.
You might know.
Yeah.
And there's
feel like I
another.
know.
There was another site that I had to leave because as you've noticed, my name is Redd Horrocks. It's not a usual name. My first name is different. Redd's a nickname. I've had it since I was 12. And the other site I had to quit because they changed their privacy policy to where it was required that I used my legal first name. And I've spent my entire life being called Redd. And I've also spent 15 years building my brand.
Right.
So my name is my brand. So I was like, well, I'm sorry, I can't do that anymore. And I only had, I think, 5 clients on there, and I messaged all of them. I never gave them any information, really. All I said was I messaged them and I said, I just wanted to let you know in case you're looking for me in the future, I'll no longer be working on this platform anymore. I've really enjoyed working with you. Thanks so much for your business. And within a month, I had 5 emails because they'd found me on my website.
Wow.
And I was like, oh, that makes me feel good. So I didn't break any rules.
That is, and I know you're right. There's a lot of sites, most of them who don't want you to give out personal information for obvious
No, and I
reasons.
never do. This is a hard and fast rule. I never do.
Of course.
Ever. You were an exception because you messaged me through Fiverr, but I knew that it was for the greater good.
And
you aren't gonna pay me,
apologize.
so.
And I apologize so much because I know the worst thing to do, and this anybody who's listening, the worst thing to do is what I did to Redd, and I apologize because you never want to message someone, especially what happens to me, and I love everybody, and I know they don't mean anything bad about it, but maybe other voiceover artists or someone who has a question for you that's related not to like work, but just in needing advice, and they message you right before bed.
Oh.
You go to sleep, and then you wake up, and it's like 5 or 6 hours after they message you, and you're like, oh no.
Yeah.
And then you just have to message back and a couple of words, but so I thank you so much for being so kind and understanding. I appreciate it. I didn't know what you were going to say. I was afraid you were going to be frustrated, which I wouldn't have blamed you. So thank you.
No, not at all. I'm just it's nice to. I mean, for me on a personal level, it's always wonderful to be able to connect with people that understand my world and do what I do. I mean, we're freelancers. We're in a very isolated community here. We don't get to go to a water cooler and vent about the ridiculous phone call we just had, like a regular office. This is our water cooler, and I will take any opportunity I have to be able to talk to people that understand my world.
That is so
my,
cool.
My poor suffering husband, he has no idea. I don't know how he does it. He has a stock response list, I think, that he goes through when I'm whining about something, and it's always fun.
With that being said, what about the forums? And actually, I've done very little on the forums, and I noticed that when I go on there, when you talk about a community and a Fiverr community, there are many, and I don't know, I think you're actually, well, I know that I had found you, or I first thought about having the, guts to message you when I had someone else who I work with who is in a Facebook group that I think you either run or you're in. And
I'm in it. I don't run it.
Okay.
Yeah.
When I go to the forum, I see that there was a lot of people active. There's a lot of people active, but I noticed there was a lot of people on that were active a lot more a while ago. And
yeah. There's definitely a while ago there was a really big, in my opinion, and this is just my opinion.
Right.
There was a really big shift a few years ago, maybe I want to say 3 years ago, where the community aspect of Fiverr became very different. It used to be a lot more. Again, the site used to be smaller, and everyone knew each other, or not everyone knew each other, but people knew of each other. And the forums were more of a place where you could go and see opinions and advice. But when you've been on a website for 6 years and you're looking at the forums, everything's cyclical. So every single thing that's come up, trust me, it's already come up before. So the forums become less of a fun place to be because there's never really anything new going on. Mm-hmm. Now, for a new person, absolutely, you're in that beginning cycle where everything's new to you. This is an awesome time to be on a forum. But for me, and for a lot of the other ambassadors and former ambassadors, I know that we have become a lot more hands-off just because, we're not really needed anymore. The resources used to have were minimal. Now they have a massive resource center and help center for people that need like bug assistance and advice and things like that.
Right.
So that wasn't a resource we used to have, and now we have it. So I think that's another reason the forums are less active, because people can find help in a more automatic way than asking other people.
Wow. Yeah.
And I used to do
absolutely.
forum moderation too, and yeah, it was just a lot of the same stuff. How do I get buyers? Why are my sales down? Why is the font changed? All kinds of things like that. Just all the stuff.
Right.
The cycles every couple of months.
So with that being said, what do you notice is some mistakes, just a couple of general mistakes you see new people making? Either with them taking advice from other people on Fiverr, for Fiverr, or being, in the group that you're in and stuff like that. Is there any particular just one or two, and then I'll get to the last question and let you go.
You can have much of my time as you want. This is lovely for me.
Well, thank you.
You're just going to have a really long podcast. I think publicly complaining is a terrible idea.
Yeah.
Your reputation carries, and it carries everywhere. And I would say that any interactions that you have publicly about your work should try and be positive.
Right.
If you do have feedback or something negative or something, do it privately, find a friend to talk to, create a Skype room with a bunch of other people who do what you do. But I think a mistake that I do see people make sometimes is that they become associated with negativity, especially on the forums and in the communities, and it's really hard to break that. And
yes.
it's not necessarily gonna hurt you sales wise, but it's just gonna mean that you're just not gonna have as many resources. Like if you do need a hand with something from someone, you're not gonna be as likely to get it. And it's the same with clients. Like if you don't treat clients well, if you act. One of the things that I see a lot, or I saw a lot before with a couple of sellers, is when they would they'd get a little traction and they'd be doing kind of well. And I am also occasionally guilty of this, but I try super, super hard to keep myself in check, is when they start to get really entitled.
Right.
And yes, my time is incredibly valuable, but so is yours. And
Right.
I think that sometimes people will get like on their a little bit on their high horse, and I've done this before, where I've been like, someone sent me something. I had this yesterday actually, where someone had messaged me and they said this word's pronounced wrong, and I knew it wasn't pronounced wrong, and I checked it and I listened to it, and I'm like, it's not pronounced wrong. Are you can you please double check? Like, can you listen again? Like, it's not wrong. And they come back to me and they're like, no, I need it pronounced like this. And they sent me it, and it was a different pronunciation of the word. The word is, I'll tell you the word. It was the word Kanban, which is it's a system, something technology. I know a lot of stuff, but it goes in one ear and out the other.
What was the word? What was
Kanban?
the word?
Kanban. It is I think
Kanban.
it's an aspect of like a Microsoft suite. It's something
Okay.
very specific. So I've done a lot of voiceovers about this before, because I do a lot of corporate stuff.
Right.
And I was like, no, it's pronounced Kanban. And they kept saying, you're pronouncing it wrong. And I'm like, no, I'm not. No, I'm not. No, I'm not. And finally, after 9 messages back and forth, I finally figure out that he's in a different country and they don't pronounce it like that there. And he just hadn't been able to figure out how to articulate it to me, that it wasn't that I was wrong, I was regionally incorrect based on what he needed. It wasn't my fault, it wasn't his fault, it was no one's fault. But I was getting like super mad, and I was wrong in like, I was right and I was wrong. So it's having the patience and like really like taking the time to try so hard to. I don't ever think that clients are necessarily trying to annoy you.
Right.
Very, very rarely does that happen. So every so often you have to think, okay, well, wait, am I, it's okay, I can be wrong. Am I just wrong? And should I just check that it's not in fact me, even though I'm sure it is? So, people that get really like, everything I do is right, and then they go back and double check the work and they're like, oh, maybe, no, okay. So it's just better to take the time, double check it, you really could be wrong, and that's okay. Just fix it and be nice and laugh about it, and you're good. So
that's so awesome that you say that, because that happens a lot. And
yeah,
and it's funny because we're hired a lot for the fact that we have the accent that we have, and which I know that you're British, right? But you are American.
Mm-hmm.
You're
I'm
also
complicated.
live here in America.
I'm so
Okay.
complicated. Yes, I am. I'm from Southeast England.
Okay.
And then I moved to Georgia when I was 18, and then I moved out to the West Coast 10 years later. So.
Oh wow! Yeah, you got the full gambit.
My party trick is that I can flip them, so I can go completely British, and you would not know I'd ever been to America. But no, it's a chameleon. So that's why I was saying earlier, like talking to you, I'm American because you're American. But if you were English, we'd be speaking in an English accent right now. And I can't control, like when it's a normal conversation with normal people, I can't control it. And it's hilarious. Especially if I have
definitely hear you
yeah.
definitely have a couple of words where it sounds like it. But
there's a little twang there, yeah.
But that's okay.
I also say y'all because I was in Georgia, so.
I love it, y'all. Because
Yeah.
I'm in Virginia, so
there you
I'm
go.
in Southeast Virginia, yeah. So but that's great. I knew that I knew that because I know on your gigs you offer, the British accent as well as an American accent.
Yep, but don't ask me to do Australian. I can't do it. I've tried. It's terrible.
Oh no. Which one do you find you get more work in?
It's really it's almost completely 50-50.
Wow.
It's very interesting too, though, because I can tell if I have like 7 orders placed within a 1 hour span in the middle of the night, they're all going to be British accents because it's morning for England. And
Right.
then all of my stuff that's come in the afternoon is always American. So it's kind of funny like
Wow.
that. But it's very, very split. And I have
Wow.
some people that want me to do both, which is always kind of fun. So.
Wow, that is cool. I was gonna say that I do back at that other thing about people coming in, and usually it happens to be like you said, someone in a different country who wants your American accent, but then there's a particular word where they feel needs to be said in the more so the accent of from where they're from, and it's a different pronunciation of it.
Take websites in South Africa. The ending handle for South Africa is .za, and it's if I get this wrong, I'm going to laugh at myself. But it's I always do. So you might have to look it up and see which one is correct. But in my memory, I get a lot of people who ask me to be in a British accent because South Africa is a little bit more English sounding. But then their web addresses, I have to then do Z instead of Z. So, because they say,
wow.
I think, or it's the other way around. It's one of the two, but it's cross accent. So the way that they pronounce the Z is counter to what the accent choice always is, and I forget all the time. And then they come back to me and they're like, "Hey, so in our country we pronounce it like this," and I'm like, "Yes, I know. I'm so sorry. Here, let me fix that for you. I'm not going to charge you for that because it's okay. That's a really standard thing. It's not your fault." So. But yeah, there's stuff like that all the time. And then there's times when it's people. I love it when people try and explain to you how something needs to be pronounced when it's just this really, really standard thing. Like I get people like trying to explain how voila is said all the time to me. And I'm like, no, I got this one. I'm good. I'm cool. You're okay. I got you. I do this for a living. You're okay.
Yeah. I'd be interested to see what they say when they're trying to describe voila. I have
to save one and send it to you because it's often
funny.
quite hilarious. But it's because I know that they're following my directions. It's
Absolutely.
a non-English word, and I've said, "Please tell me how to pronounce that." And I'm like, "No, I don't
And
mean
that's-
that. You're all right."
And to piggyback off of that point, though, really quick, and then I have one more question for you, is the expectations, and you said this a couple times, and for everybody listening, I know for me, my business completely changed, especially around revisions. I used to really feel like I was, just kind of roaming in the dark with understanding how to make clients not maybe necessarily take advantage of me, but I felt sometimes it was too much. But the expectations are so important, and I notice a lot of new people don't necessarily write down exactly what you were saying, that as much expectations as you can, but in a kind manner, not in a manner in where it looks like you don't want to work with somebody, which I've seen.
Right.
I will not do this. I will not do that. No.
Yeah, I mean, I usually try to use very gentle language. So if you came to me, I will tell you exactly what my revision policy is. I will have people that say, what is your policy? And my party line is, I will be happy to make pace and pitch changes at no cost. If you have a script, a pronunciation, or direction change, we would need a new order for that. That's it.
Gotcha.
Just simple.
Gotcha.
Just simple, straight and easy.
I've switched to that same thing that you do. Mm-hmm. That's what I do pretty much now.
If I can make the change, and it's the same rate. And but the other thing that I do too, the one that I get a lot, and this was a choice that I made when I decided to change my minimum rate from $5 to $10, is I will have them place a new order, and I will get people coming to me all the time saying that they want a custom order for $5, and I don't do that. If you've put in a revision request on the order, if it's a current order, I will do it. I will do a $5 revision. But if the order is closed out and you've come to me a month later, it's a new minimum. And I tell people all the time, if they want to tack it on to the end of another order, so long as you're in the purchase word count, that's fine with me. But I don't do $5 custom offers anymore. Mostly because you do have to have a line. And if you've got a change and it's not my fault, and you haven't been timely, then, I want to help you and I will help you as much as I can. But at the same time, you need to learn not to do that in the future. And I can't spend my entire day sending $5 custom offers, because that's what I'd be doing.
I know. Speaking of messaging, I think I got like three Fiverr messages since we've been doing this.
Oh, now my email's going now. Yeah, for sure. That's how it always goes. I have to
turn off my phone. I mean, sometimes it gets so bad, and I guess that's something too, that when you get so much, it can be so distracting, like from stopping your workflow.
I'll tell you
another challenge.
One of the best things I ever did was I don't have notifications on my phone. I don't have new orders go to my email, but I don't have revision requests. They don't pop up in my email. I've got them filtered out because I don't like seeing them. Okay. And then
that's a good idea.
And then the other thing that I do is I have my phone to where the Fiverr app stops working at 9 p.m. for me, and it doesn't start working again until 6 a.m. So I can't even go in.
Interesting.
So I've got it locked off, because I found that what was happening was I was answering messages at 10:30 at night, and then it was rolling around in my brain and I couldn't get to sleep. And then I had this period of about 2 years where I was having real problems sleeping. So I would wake up in the middle of the night and it's like, oh, while I'm awake, I might as well check my phone. And then I'd check Fiverr, and then I'd be, doing emails and working at 3 a.m. from my bed with my husband asleep next to me. And I was like, this is not helping me get back to sleep. So I just stopped doing it. And now it's, I work fairly regular business hours, but from 9 p.m. until 6 a.m., no Fiverr, none. And I have to do that for me.
I'm so, and I know maybe for other people, it depends on where you are, but that is so, like, for me, it's so awesome to hear you say that, because it can be way too much.
Yeah, and you have to protect your mental health. You really, really do. I mean, it's another reason why I like connecting with other people that kind of understand the world. I have a Skype room that I think there's only 6 or 7 of us in now, but there's about 6 or 7 of us top rated high volume sellers. And it's basically just an open channel. We don't talk in it every day, but if something happens, or if someone's having a weird day, or if someone needs to vent about a client, or if someone had a baby, it's just That's nice so cool. to have for want of a better word, coworkers.
Yeah.
So, you have to think about the things, it's a great system, and Fiverr's a wonderful site, and I love what I do for a living. But especially when we work and most of us are working from home, you have to figure out a way to keep yourself in check so that you aren't getting too overwhelmed, so that you don't feel like all you're doing is working, so you're not continuously glued or tied to it, because it seeps in. I mean, it seeps in everywhere, especially when it's there all the time. And you're going to do better if you're emotionally around it better. If you're happy, liking your job, and you're doing it, you're going to do better. If you're frustrated that you're constantly getting another notification at 2 a.m. and now I have to answer it and all this kind of stuff, you're gonna get cranky, and it's going to impact all aspects of your life, including how well you do at work.
Absolutely.
So that's my little soapbox. I'll get down now.
I love it. No, I love it. All right. Well, this has been so wonderful. I just have one more question for you. And this one is more of a fun one, I guess. So if you had to start over today and you had no previous customers, the brand that, you've built was gone. Now you had all your equipment though. You magically have all your equipment and your knowledge, but you don't have any other customers. What would you do? Where would you start?
That's a really it's a fun question, but it's a weird one. Because I don't know how to not know the things I know.
Well, no. I mean, like, yeah, I understand. But if you did know kind of what you know.
Are you saying, like, is there anything that I would change about what I have up or anything?
Well, like, for example, when you started on Fiverr, the same with me, right? It was different then than it is now. And, so would you do anything different or, that starting to get again today than you did when you started?
If I was back to when I started, I think the difference is if it wasn't my full-time job,
right.
Which is how it wasn't when I started. I started Fiverr. I had a regular job. I ended up, quitting after a while because I just simply couldn't do both.
Right.
If it wasn't my full-time job and I wanted to build myself up differently, I would start my minimum order rates much higher. Honestly.
Interesting.
I would be a higher rate from the get-go so that expectation was there, and that I would maybe have in the beginning as I was getting better at it, I would have a lower volume, more time to concentrate on those clients and honing my craft. I think that's what I would do differently. Because the other thing too is I love what I do and I love where I'm at in my career. But for me, raising prices is incredibly difficult because there is a level of expectation amongst my 18,000 prior clients as to what my rates are. So for me, I'm not pigeonholed by any stretch of the imagination. This is the road that I've decided to go down. And since I've gone down it, I'm sticking to it. But if I was to start over and do a different road, I might go the higher price route. Maybe.
That's definitely interesting. Do you think that people just starting out, though, do you think that going higher price on Fiverr affects them more so than starting out at that entry-level price?
It depends on the quality you can provide.
Okay.
If you are recording on a USB mic in your closet, probably want to start at $5. If you've got yourself a really sweet studio set up with a fantastic mic and everything's going really, really beautiful, and if you can do a voiceover over recording and send it without touching it, you can charge higher. That's the way I kind of view it. If you are going to have to like edit and adjust and normalize and all this kind of stuff because your equipment isn't as good, you probably want to lower your rate because you aren't able to. You've got to make sure the expectation is set. If I'm charging $100, it's expected of me to have a completely professional setup. If I'm charging $5, I can get away with a little more. Make sense?
It makes perfect sense. And actually, I'm sorry. I know I told you that was the last question.
No, ask as many as you like. Seriously, I have done my work for today. This is my happy time.
Okay. So you sparked another question in me actually about what you just said. So with the amount of, well, let me ask you this. Do you mind, how many would you say on average a month orders do you complete?
You're not going to like this answer.
Okay.
Just on Fiverr?
Yeah.
About 600.
Oh my gosh. 600. That is insane. No, I'm
it's
not
that crazy.
Well, it's I mean, that's insane.
But those are of varying lengths. I mean, some of those are 3 words and some of them are 8,000 words. It runs the gamut.
Wow.
So.
Okay, so with that being said, and that leads me to the 600. See, okay. I'm glad I talked to you. No, that's okay. Well, I think like I want to go, I'm hot stuff. But see, I knew talking to you would be a good thing. Here, this is my question to you now. You just mentioned before about sending off a piece of work where you didn't do anything, like it was just sending off. So I guess my question to you is, is that how you are able to get through so many? Is you have a very limited, Like, because see, for me, like at this point, I have all presets. Everything is built into my entire system. So it takes me very little time from the moment I record to then sending a finished product. Mm-hmm. For you, are you doing any, post-production work at all?
Nope.
Wow.
I remove errors. That's all I need to do. I've got it. I've been doing this for 6 years. I've got it completely dialed in. The other thing I have, and this is where you're getting a little bit of my secret sauce. So, because I am a high volume seller, my goal is to I get into a rhythm with orders. And for me, what I have found the way that I work best is if I'm able to just continuously go, 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 go. So a while ago, probably 3 years ago now, I mentioned this to another seller who was, he's a web developer. And we were just chatting on Skype one day, and I was lamenting about how much I hated opening an order, downloading a script, checking all the criteria, reading the script, exporting the file, naming it how I wanted to name it, sending it. And how I wished I could just have something where it was just record, hit next, record, hit next, record, hit next. And he said, well, I can build that for you. And he did.
Wow.
So what I have, I'm very, very lucky. I have an assistant. She captures all the information I need from every single order, and she puts it into a system for me where when I log in the morning, literally all I do is record, hit next, record, hit next, record, hit next. And then I batch upload all of the orders. So I can get a really good flow going, a very, very unbroken rhythm. And because everything I have is set up exactly how I like it, and my studio never changes. I mean, nothing in here changes. It's calibrated exactly to me. I do not have to do post-processing. And that is the Picasso methodology of how I get through it all. So
that's great. I've actually thought about personally, it would be so much nicer to be able to take everything in my queue and just go into my booth and record everything and then come out instead of, doing it starting, stopping. I love that.
Yeah, I'm really, really lucky that I have it. It's definitely one of the reasons why I'm able to turn work around so quickly for clients, but it's taken years to develop the system. And that's why I say it's the Picasso methodology. Do you know the old adage of the Picasso line drawing thing? Why Picasso is worth so much?
No.
Okay. This is one of my favorite
tell me.
Okay. This is one of my favorite analogies. Okay. So here's a little story. Okay. A woman is walking down the street in, I guess it would have been Spain. It's Picasso and this would have been obviously a while ago. And she says, Picasso, can you paint me? And he's like, sure. So he draws a line on a piece of paper. And then this is all obviously very incorrect terminology and methodology and numbers. And the woman's like, oh my God, Picasso, the line, it's perfect. You've captured me. This is every essence of my being is to you in this line. How much for it? And he says 5,000. We'll do Spain. So I don't know, euros, 5,000 euros. And she's like, what do you mean 5,000 euros? It took you a second to draw it. And he says, no, madam, it took me my entire life. And that is why, even though it doesn't take me like hours to record something, is why I still feel okay at, charging for it.
That's a really good story.
I got
a
lot of weird stuff. But it's
gonna
true,
go right on the website. I'll quote you right on the website.
I know. I always worry though, because some people say, "Well, that didn't like." I'll have clients sometimes, and they're like, "Wow, that was fast," and I'm like, "Is that an accusation or a compliment?"
Ooh, I've had those before,
yeah.
And I thought, boy, it's weird to me when they complain about it being fast, or more so, you're right. You don't know if it's a complaint or it's a
but
kind
for
of
me,
stab at you. Maybe you should have taken longer.
Right, but for me, it's I can do it quickly because I've spent years figuring out how to do it quickly, and for me also, like, if I take forever on a piece, I'm gonna do it to death. I'm gonna overthink it. I'm gonna overanalyze. It's not gonna be natural. What people are looking for from me is they're looking for regular, natural thing. And the other thing is my special skill is cold reading. I'm just really good at it. So that's
a great skill.
It's only applicable in this situation. That's it.
Wow.
But it is a good skill to have.
Well, hey, listen, this has been amazing. I feel like I could talk to you forever, but then I feel like maybe people would be like, enough. get going. I think we've been over an hour, so I just thank you so much for your time. I'm blown away and honored, and I really appreciate it.
Oh, well, it was lovely to speak to you, and I think what you're doing is awesome. There's so many people that don't have the ability to talk to other people about this kind of thing, and having a podcast where people can access this kind of information, or at least just know they're not alone, is really nice. I know if I was coming up and I had this, it would have been amazing, but alas, I was a guinea pig.
Well, thank you so much.
Sure.
Well, you have a wonderful, wonderful rest of your week, and
Thank you. You too.
Yeah, and I will talk to you soon.
Okay, take care.
All right. Yep. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Well, thank you so much, Redd, for that incredible interview and for your time. I have to say, I'm just very happy that I got a chance to talk to you, and I learned a great deal from you myself tonight. So thank you from all the VO Journey community. We really appreciate it, and we wish you the very best. And I want to wish everyone a great rest of your week. Thank you guys out there, and have a good one. Peace.